Well, it's been a tough winter all around. The record-breaking snowfalls and cold have added nature's insult to the injury incurred from defenders of global warming. So Al Gore came in from the cold over the weekend, penning an op-ed for the New York Times defending his position against a cascade of criticism. Joining me now for a fair and balanced debate, Chris Horner of the Competitive Enterprise Institute and author of the book Red Hot Lies, and Dan Esty, who is a former environmental advisor to President Obama, who joins us now as well. Good to see you guys. So let me read to you the quote from Al Gore's op-ed that's getting the most amount of press today. It says, from the standpoint, this is Al Gore talking, from the standpoint of governance, what is at stake is our ability to use the rule of law as an instrument of human redemption. Dan Esty, human redemption, isn't that a little hard? I mean, you get human redemption from God, not from Al Gore.
Well, I don't know that we want to pick apart Al Gore's specific words. I think the bottom line of his message is a good one, which is, yes, there have been some problems with the climate science. There's some folks who haven't done things the way they should have. But the bottom line is this analysis is based on hundreds of studies, and the underlying picture of the science hasn't changed. We have a problem. We don't know necessarily exactly how big or how fast it's coming at us, but we do have a pretty strong sense that there's an issue here we need to deal with.
Chris, go ahead.
Well, the dead parrot sketch you played for Andrew Breitbart was perfully fitting for this 2,000
It wasn't the dead parrot. I hate to disappoint you, Chris. It wasn't the dead parrot sketch. It was the guy who was getting his legs chopped off. But that's all right.
Knight. I'm sorry. It's just a flesh wound. 15 years with no warming, admitted to by the guy at the center of ClimateGate, Phil Jones, is just a flesh wound. And Al Gore takes to the page of the New York Times with 2,000 deathless words saying that it's actually accelerating and going faster than expected. I think I just want to, if he's watching, send a big thank you to the Vice President and may ask you to promise never to ever go away again for 2 months or any other period of time. We need these things so that I don't have to convince people it's a religion, it's a faith. He's doing it in the pages of the New York Times, using global warming regulation as an instrument of human redemption. And he says if you fail to, you've abandoned the rule of law. This is highly overwrought, and we need more of it to remind the public of what this agenda is really all about at its core.
Well, let's talk about the core of the policy agenda, which is passage of cap and trade. Dan, it has been a tough year. I mean, by any perspective for global warming advocates. The fact is that cap and trade right now has been put on the way back burner. Is it ever going to pass?
Well, David, as you and I have talked about before, there's a really important debate to have here about what the right policy approach to this tough problem is. And I think what we know is that people should pay for the harms they cause. And I think the cap and trade approach is one response to that, but there are a number of others. And I think it's time for creativity. And frankly, as you've heard me say before, I think when we're doing something as fundamental as rethinking the energy foundation of our society, we want to move carefully, and it would be best to move in a very bipartisan way. So I think what we're doing now is stepping back and having people think about the right way forward, and I hope really working at a package of incentives that will move us towards an environmental strategy broadly and a climate change proposal in particular that focuses on innovation.
Dan says we have to pay for the harm that we do to the environment, and I can understand that, but the question is whether that harm includes global warming, particularly in light of the winter we've seen.
Well, we have. You don't want to say that.
That's for Chris. Go ahead,
Chris. You know what we have is you can try the science of global warming. We've got 15 years of no warming admitted to by the man at the center of ClimateGate. We can put the science on trial. You would have to actually make your case. You don't have to make your case if Congress adopts legislation, of course. You have to make your case in courts. And we look forward to putting this on trial. Instead of using this false urgency, being further debunked every year, with each revelation and each observation, this false urgency to force, as Dan calls it, a rethink of something that actually 2 billion more people on the planet need, and that is centralized electricity generation, access to abundant, affordable, reliable energy. And in fact, this agenda is designed to create energy poverty and to make energy more scarce.
You know, Dan, Chris brings up an interesting point, which is something I was just talking to a taxi driver about here in Manhattan, a guy from Africa who said these guys who believe in global warming and want cap and trade, they don't want us poor people, to develop in a way that they developed, because we have to go through a polluting stage in order to get up to the level of decency where people don't starve to death. A lot of people from poor countries say, you guys are forcing us to remain underdeveloped.
No, that's just not true. And clearly, I want to see low-cost, reliable energy as much as anyone else. I think the goal has got to be to make sure that we have a fair race in terms of what the energy supply sources of the future will be. Make the polluting sources of energy pay for the harm they cause, and then let's see
what if they
the
can't?
best strategy going forward.
That's the point. To the taxi driver's point, what if they can't afford to pay for this pollution?
We pay for it one way or the other. We either pay for it directly or we pay for it in harms that are uninternalized externalities, that are burdens that we all have to face, that we pay in the price for in terms of public health.
What if they can't? Hold on a second, guys. Dan, what if they can't? What if the polluters can't afford to pay for their pollution like all these underdeveloped countries in the world?
Well, I think that, David, there's two different answers to that. One is that what we need to move toward over time is cleaner sources of energy. And there's lots of reasons to do that, not just global warming, but local air pollution. And frankly, from a U.S. point of view, because it will help us break our dependence on foreign oil. And I think if we do it in a way that's thoughtful, careful, and well-designed, it doesn't have to add a lot of cost.
I still didn't hear the final answer, but go ahead, Chris.
To a plan B. Okay, you see we have to shift to a plan B. It's really about China. It's really about jobs. It's really about national security. It's the WMD strategy. It's what I think will work even if there are no WMDs. Remember, President Obama wants people to forget. He said the goal of cap and trade, and he's not an economic illiterate, as proved by this, is to cause electricity prices to necessarily skyrocket and bankrupt politically disfavored interests. They want access to abundant energy to be safe, legal, and rare.
That's got to be the last word. Dan Asti, Chris Horner, good to see you both. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. Coming up on deck, President